Hello, my name is Julie Breuer. I'm with the World Trade Center Health Program at Stony Brook University in New York, Long Island, New York. I'm joined here with two very wonderful 9/11 responders, and today we're bringing you a program that we hope you'll learn much from to learn about the World Trade Center disaster and the responders and the work that they did and the impact that it has had on them over the past 16 years. Today we are commemorating the 16th anniversary of 9/11, and one of the topics we really want to discuss is what is a responder and who are the responders in our community. And this is very important as we reflect upon not only 9/11, but at the most recent natural disasters that our country has faced, both in Texas and in Florida. A little bit about our program. The World Trade Center Health Program at Stony Brook started in 2002 as a direct response to the health needs of the 9/11 responders. But in 2010, the James Adroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act was passed by Congress, which provided federal funding for our program, and our name officially changed to the World Trade Center Health Program. In 2015, this program was reauthorized until 2090, which just gives you a sense of how important this program is in providing health care for our 9/11 responders. Currently, the Stony Brook Health Care Program has nearly 100 employees and 2 clinical locations where we care for nearly 10,000 responders. We provide medical monitoring and health care to these members. And in addition to the health care we provide, we have a mission to educate, which is why we're here today, our community about the 9/11 responders. We have a mission to do research, and we're involved with a lot of cutting-edge research, trying to understand the impact of 9/11 exposures, both health exposures and psychological exposures, on the people who were there working and the long-term impact on their health. The purpose of today's class, one of the things we would like you to learn about is oral history. So we have an oral history project that we began in 2009, and we've been collecting stories that we have been sharing with the Library of Congress, and is part of their archive at the Library of Congress. Both of the responders I have here today were participants in these oral histories, and we want to give you a little bit of an insight of what is an oral history and how important is oral history as part of our history collection, about learning about American history, listening to stories as a way of understanding the truth behind the facts. So you're going to hear a lot of facts from these responders, but you're also going to hear a lot of personal storytelling, and that's very important to trying to put meaning to our history. So one of the outcomes of our oral history project was a documentary film we produced, and I would like to segue into this film and give all of you a sneak peek into what can be the outcome of oral history taking. The name of our film is called 9/11 An American Requiem. So now let's take a sneak peek at that film, and then we'll return here to have a discussion about the film and about your experiences.
Over the radio, it came over unknown condition at the World Trade Center.
I got a phone call from one of my friends who was retired from NYPD and said, "Did you listen to the news? You know, a plane hit the World Trade Center and it just doesn't look right, you know." So I finished pumping gas. I went home, put on the TV set, and as soon as I saw it, I started packing a bag.
I took the Northern State Parkway, which is one of the most direct routes, and as luck would have it, I was doing about 100 miles an hour on the Parkway, and there was a state trooper who just flew right by, and he came alongside of me and was telling me to pull over. So to save time, I just took out my shield and I held it up and I showed it to him. And I guess he had heard that the towers were attacked, because he just gave me a wave and said, "Follow me," basically gave me a wave, and I knew he meant to follow me. He turned on his lights, and he gave me an escort all the way into Queens.
All of a sudden, you could hear the officers who were trapped in the building calling for help.
You heard that where on the...
Yeah, on the radio.
On the radio.
Yeah, they were still alive. And they were calling for the radio, for help. As a matter of fact, the female officer who perished, I've forgotten her name, but you could hear her very clearly that she was calling for help. And that was one of the most helpless moments I've ever experienced in my entire life, because, you know, unless I wore a Superman suit, there was no way I was going to take off 110 stories worth of debris off of a building. But at that point, the only thing I could do was I got up, I turned the radio off, because I knew that that was just having a very negative effect. All the officers that were in that room were crying, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because you would have to be more than heartless not to understand what was going on.
We just continued to evacuate people. Like there was a woman down in the basement level that she had cerebral palsy and she couldn't walk, and she was trying to get out of the building, and I picked her up and I carried her out of the building, and I knew that we had to get her away from the area because there was more planes coming, because that's what the FBI had said. So now you got 2 planes hit the tower, so you're just in this smoke-filled, debris-filled area where there's jumpers. I saw my first jumper. I had no idea what it was. Big brawly guy, FBI around, you know, shield around his neck, came up to us and said, you know, you're not a coward. You know, if you want to leave, there's more planes coming. We're under attack. You know, you're going to die if you stay here. And this came from an FBI agent. And I remember looking up at him and saying, "You kidding me, right?" And he's like, "No." He said, "We're under attack. It's terrorism." So he knew more than I knew and what we knew. And the cops that I was working there with, we were like, you know, okay, we're just going to continue. It's like we're making a choice. We're not leaving. That's our job.
Somebody yelled, "Get down." I heard this horrible noise. I thought maybe it was an airplane flying into the building. There was this tremendous rush of air, followed by this debris. I was thrown to the ground and shot across the floor about 100 feet with my victim, and that was the building collapsing. Fortunately, we were just outside the collapse zone. It was the last time I saw Tommy, Harry, or Mitch.
The firemen that walked into the building, they went in, they never came out. You know, I don't know what company they were, I don't know where they were from, but I held the door for them to get in and clear the way for them to walk to their deaths.
And the first thing we did as iron workers and the laborers and painters who were with us, once we came out of the tunnel, some of us got down on the sidewalk and said a prayer, because some of us had never been in a disaster that was apparently an act of war, or warlike in nature. The devastation, the smell, the helicopters. I can still hear the sirens going off. The jets, the fighter jets, flying their sorties, that echoing through the towers of the booming of their turbine engines. And then on top of all of this, you hear sirens constantly.
435 congressional districts in the United States, 431 of them came to ground zero. The good came to fight that evil.
The strength of this country is not its military might, it's its people and its compassion. And I would have given my life for this country in a second. And I truly mean that.
Welcome back. I think to start this discussion, the first thing that I'd like to do is have each of you introduce yourself to our students. So Ralph, I'll start with you.
How you doing? My name is Rafael Orozco, and I'm a retired New York City police detective.
My name is Marissa Valley. I am also a retired New York City police detective.
Okay. Ralph, can you tell us a little bit about what your job responsibilities were at the time of 9/11? What were you doing as a detective?
Well, on that particular day, actually, we were, myself and Detective Phil Hanna, we were working election detail because it was election day. Just like tomorrow's election day, it was election detail. So we were assigned to election detail for that particular morning when the incident occurred.
And where were you in New York City?
We were actually, it's kind of funny, we were at a car wash getting the vehicle cleaned so that we could go to where we were going to work. But where I was assigned was to the Housing Bureau, PSA 3, which covers like 6 precincts within Brooklyn North.
Okay. And Marissa, where were you that morning?
That morning I was with my partner, Scott Curcio, and we were in a building, court buildings, because that was the day that we were going to testify. And we were in an office that had a direct view of the Twin Towers. It was a beautiful office and a beautiful view. And that's exactly where we were. We were there bright and early with my partner. He has to get us there real early. So we were there by 8:15, 8:20. We were sitting in that office just looking out the window.
Just blocks, really. That's downtown.
We're actually about 4 blocks away.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in 100 Center Street. Across the street was 80 Center Street. Those are the 2 court buildings, which is approximately, in walking distance, 4 blocks from the Trade Center.
So I'm going to let Melissa talk a little bit because, Raphael, we saw your story already a little bit in the video that was just shown. When everything started happening, you were at the court building. How did you respond?
Like I said, I have a partner. He was also an ex-Marine. We were looking out the window and the first plane hit the Twin Towers. My experience, I thought the gentleman who was flying, and I use that word lightly, was flying that plane, just didn't know what he was doing. My partner, again, who was an ex-Marine, said, that was done on purpose. We need to get down there. So right away, he asked me to change my shoes, which was impossible. I had high heels on and in a suit, and we go, let's go. At that point, I didn't know what to expect. Elevators stopped in that building, so we were from the 9th floor, ran down the steps, and ran the 4 blocks while we were running towards the Twin Towers. People were running towards us, asking for help. Sorry.
It's fine. Take your time.
So we were just like running there, and once we got there, we were instructed by a boss, an NYPD lieutenant, and because we were in suits and we had our shields out, we were instructed to stand diagonally across the street from the Twin Towers so we could tell people to keep running. Anybody in uniform was instructed to go into the Twin Towers.
So your post was down just right near the towers where the planes hit?
We were right across the street.
Right across the street. And were you there when the buildings collapsed?
We were there, standing there when the first building came down.
Okay. And what did you do?
To be honest, I just stood there because I was amazed how this building was just coming down. My partner, who was on the other corner, was screaming for me to run. I had an older woman who was holding on to me, and I was like, we have to run, ma'am, we have to run. At that point, my contacts blew out of my eyes because of the smoke and everything that was happening. So the only thing I kept trying to hear my partner, who finally came to me, and he just kept saying, just run, just run. At that point, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. At that point, I just kept looking for people. I just kept wanting people to follow me. I just kept saying, follow me. We had our shields on, so they knew that my partner and I were police officers. And I just kept saying, run, run, run with me. We'll be okay. Some people were a little leery, but what got to me was when I finally said, we know what we're doing. He's a Marine. I kept pointing to my partner. He knows what he's doing. People actually stopped and started to run with us. And we ended up, the next building came down, and that's the impact of the second building coming down is what knocked us all down.
I have a question from a Long Island school. And I guess both of you can answer this. Maybe Raphael, you could go first. How do you feel today, 16 years later?
You know, it's funny. Like any other incident that occurs in your life, you know, birth of a child, this, whatever, anytime you get to that date or that time, you have certain feelings, emotions. On this particular day, last night, my wife even noticed it. You know, I was very melancholy, very melancholy. And the first post this morning that I put was the images of the 23 NYPD officers that perished, as well as that one of Officer Smith, you know. And I was very apprehensive. You know, I had that sense of nervousness, almost like, because today, believe it or not, is almost similar to that morning. That morning was a beautiful azure blue sky day, a perfect day, and it looked like nothing was going to happen. You know, it was just a great day. But knowing that how deceptive the looks of the day could be, you have a certain amount of apprehension. You keep looking around, like thinking, oh, is something going to happen?
Right. So I know both of you have been through a lot of traumatic experiences through your work, not only your experience on 9/11, but all the months that followed where you were working in the recovery and cleanup effort. And nearly 100,000 Americans came to help respond in various capacities, either as first responders like yourselves, as volunteers, both traditional responders and non-traditional. And, you know, I want to know, and I'm sure there's many students out in the audience that wonder, like, what is it within you, and maybe you can reflect a little bit about your own response to 9/11 that motivates you and drove you down there and kept you down there, even despite all the challenges you were experiencing?
Well, I tell you, the people that I saw that day, the people that I just, every walk of life, they were just so good, even during the cleanup. Just everyone that volunteered out of their own time. That day I realized why I became a police officer, why we became a detective. There's that moment, like, what do they say, the ha-ha moment? That, believe it or not, that was my moment. When I saw how people were so grateful. They came back to see me in my command. After 9/11, while we were working, they were sending me cookies and just notes. During, like I said, the cleanup, the people used to go to work and then come back to volunteer to meet us, either if it was in Manhattan where Ralph was, Staten Island in the cleanup where I was. The volunteer of people that would just cook for us. And I'm not just saying the police officers, all responders. They were firemen, they were correction officers. It was just, people came in droves to help us. And that's, to me, was the moment that I said, I belong in the NYPD. This is the reason why I'm here. And why we do this, and Ralph, you know, if you could say.
Well, to me, it's the servant's heart. You know, people who are first responders, people who are more concerned with other people, put other people before themselves, those are special kind of people. And thank God in this country we have a lot of them. And on that particular day and the days that followed after that, we saw the servant's heart coming to respond in New York City. You know, I think that out of that tragedy, the real America was exposed. You know, the goodness in people from all over the country. I've met people from every part of the country, and as well as other people from other parts of the world. People who came and said there was a need and it needed to be filled because this was a major incident. And me personally, you know, that's my entire life. I was raised in the church, and you know, we've always thought of other people before ourselves. So for me, it was natural. And being a police officer, that's what we did. We put other people before ourselves. I didn't think about the danger. I thought about the necessity. And everyone that I worked with, that day, Detective Phil Hanna, Officer Eddie Burns, and Andy Mahabir, you know, all four of us, when we left together, we didn't know we were coming back, but we did know that we needed to be where we needed to be, and we didn't even think about it. And the days that followed after that, everybody that kept responding, we didn't think about the dangers. We just thought about what needed to be done, and that's the heart of America. That's the first responder.
With that, with the sacrifices that you made, as you said, you didn't think about, am I coming back? That's a hard decision. You know, your family, you know, was probably very concerned about you. There's consequences. So you both are here today. You know, we know that some responders did not survive when they responded, but you're here, and I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of those long-term consequences. And I'd like to have a little discussion about 16 years later, what those consequences are.
Well, for me, starting on that day, people forget that all the cell phones, nothing worked. And we were out there and we weren't allowed to come back. So for 3 days, my family didn't know where I was. And until I actually came home, they didn't know if I was dead or alive. So that had a tremendous impact on my youngest son, who was actually watching this thing on TV. And when I got home, he was crying in front of the TV. And my family, my wife, everyone, you know, was nervous. And then as the years went by, all these issues, these health issues that began to become discovered. You know, in the beginning, we were told that the air was clean and perfect, no problem, everything was good. So we were there, we had no mask, we had no protection. Then all of a sudden, they started to find out, you know, with the years, that the air there was mixed with one of the most powerful toxic mixes ever in the history of this city. And this began to take a toll on myself personally. It forced me to early retirement. I was given a choice from my doctor: stay, the stress will kill me in a few years, or get off, change diet, lose weight, this, that, the other stuff. I had to change my entire lifestyle. And now nothing bothers me either. You know, I always tell people, if this happened, that's the worst thing that happened today, nothing happened. I survived to, you know, this thing, and I'm still surviving everything afterwards. Nothing really bothers me because I can't have the stress. The stress aggravates the situations that are in my body and will expedite my demise. So I have to learn to laugh at everything.
Because of what Ralph said about the air quality, I wasn't able to have children. Like I said, 16 years ago, it bothered me maybe the first year, but what kept coming to me was, I'm still alive. We've had a great man, Sergeant Coughlin, John Coughlin, who was one of the men who perished during 9/11. He was an ESU, which is Emergency Service. He introduced my husband and I. So we used to call him Big John. He was bigger than life. So when I think about that I cannot have children now, I start to think, I'm alive. I could see people. I have my family. I have my husband, good and bad, but I have my husband. And I think about Big John, Sergeant John Coughlin, who looked the sacrifices that he made. And, you know, I don't look at it as a sacrifice now. I mean, and I have to tell you, I don't regret anything that happened health-wise to me because of John and because of all the people that helped out that day.
Raphael, I know that you've been involved with the passage of the James Zadroga Act, which is the federal government allotting a lot of money to this program to provide health care. Can you speak a little bit in detail about what health issues are that your fellow responders are experiencing and the impact on the entire community?
Well, one of the things that's come out of this, and I'm going to mention John Field and the Feel Good organization has been at the forefront pushing what was then called the James Droga bill, which was the first person who showed symptoms of these unusual cancers. And in his name became a fight that lasted for about 10 years to get the fundings and to get the programs and to even have this, you know. And what's come out of it is a total of identification of about 73 different types of cancers and breathing issues, sleeping issues, and blood issues, and memory issues, and all kind of other things. People who are developing now, they're even looking into things where people are developing issues with the sinuses and you know, the gastral issues with the GERD, and the entire body is being attacked by several of these different types of things that they have discovered in that came as a result of this toxic mix. And had it not been for the research of the Stony Brook and the other facilities, we wouldn't know this. But what's happening is we have people who, so far I believe there's about 3,600 people who have died from cancers related directly to this. Some people with as many as 2, 3, 4, and even 6 different types of cancers in one person, which is totally unheard of. And this is what's happening, and this is what's me personally, I have sleep issues, I have breathing issues, and a number of other things, to the point where I can't actually travel alone anymore because I stop breathing in the middle of the night. So, you know, I have to have my wife, which rules her sleep, but she's always with her arm around me, and she doesn't feel me move. She gives me that shake, you know, things like that, and you know, the gastral stuff and things like that.
Which shows how these consequences have not just affected you as an individual, but also your families. I have another question that's being posed. Can you still imagine being a first responder in Houston or Florida?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, in a minute.
In a minute.
In a minute. I mean, the only reason why we're not there right now is my issues that I've had with my knees, and Ralph just said he needs to travel with someone, but no doubt, all my partners are there right now. They're there, they're helping out.
So other 9/11 responders
Right.
Exactly.
are down
Exactly.
there.
Retirees and people who are still on the job, it's not even a thought. It's not a thought. It's an organization, we get together, who goes what, where, and we go.
I have friends that are there right now. I stay in contact with them through Facebook. This is not a hobby. You know, being a first responder is not a hobby. You know, it's a way of life. You know, I have a friend, Joe Gagliardo. He used to say, you know, being a police officer is not a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life. Being who we are is who we are. We think of everyone before we think of ourselves. You know, if I was in perfect health, yeah, I'd be there. I'd be there in a minute. But for me to go there and be a burden, that's not really being very smart. If something happened here, I'm going to be the first person there, because I'm not going to care about myself. But to go over there and be a burden, not a smart thing.
Can you tell me a little bit about your partners, the people you were with on 9/11 and what you did?
Go ahead.
My partner, like I mentioned his name, Scott Curcio, who was a Marine, he was tough. Not much taller than me, but he was as tough as nails. And when he said to me, when I saw his face, and he said, "Marissa, run," I did what he told me to do. He organized us to go the route that he chose. And every time he chose a path that day, it was the right path. It was the right building to run into. There was a point, not to exaggerate what happened that day, but my jacket was on fire. I didn't even feel it. Just to explain what happened that day, your adrenaline is moving. You want to help as many people as you can. You want to run. So my jacket was smoking a little bit. So a woman who held onto me the whole time, and I wish I had known her name, kept patting me on the back. I thought she was being grateful and patting me on the back, but what she was doing was putting my jacket out. So my partner just turned around and said, "Take your jacket off, let me see what's happening." We were in a store at that time, and he put this cloth, whatever he chose to put on my back, and he kept telling me, "You're gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay." And I said, "Okay, Scott, I'm gonna be okay," never knowing that he broke his leg. of course, I couldn't see that well because of the contacts falling out of my eyes, but I kept looking at him that he was limping, and I was like, Scott, what's wrong with you? He goes, nothing is wrong with me. Let's go. And we had to move again. We moved 3 times until we got everyone over the Brooklyn Bridge. Once we got over the Brooklyn Bridge, he goes, come on, we need to go to the hospital. I said, okay, Scott, let's go. And that's exactly what happened. Another officer saw us, put us in the ambulance, and sent us to one of the many hospitals. Another first responders, they weren't there, but they were waiting for us, that were there waiting and helping us out. So Scott Curcio, every year at 9/11, I just texted him while we were here. I always say to him, he moved to Florida. I said to him, partner, I miss you, and thank you.
I also did the same thing this morning. I texted Andy, Eddie, and Phil, and I told them by God's grace we were spared. Make sure you do something good or some act of kindness for today. And I told them I would be here today to keep telling this story so that we can keep getting more research and more other things. But the most important thing about those guys, and we're still close to today, we're brothers. And like we say, we're brothers from a different mother. When I told them we need to go there, not one of them said why. They said, which car are we taking? We knew we had to get out of the suits. We had to get in the bag, run down there. And we went, and we were there, and we did things that were really funny. One of them was, we were there for a long time. We hadn't eaten, and Eddie, we had gone into a Burger King, and there was frozen pies, and he's standing on top of the pile eating a frozen pie while all this ash is going on. And I'm like, Eddie, what are you doing? He says, man's got to eat. So, these guys were great guys. We washed ourselves down with water that we found, and we looked after each other. We didn't let each other get out of each other's sight. So for the 3 days we were together, and we've been together ever since.
Julie, I just want to say one thing. I just met Ralph today, but he's my brother in blue.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'll be his sister in blue.
That's right. We're family.
We're family. This is the first time, but I'll always remember Ralph. And, we could see each other in the street one day. We just realized we live close to each other. We're family, and that's something that's important, and I want everyone to understand that. We will always be family.
Can you tell the students what the 9/11 project means to you and other first responders?
It has become one of the great things that I am most proud of. That I can say that I did something. Everybody has a purpose. Like the man said in the movie, the world needs ditch diggers too. Well, I'm very proud of what I've done in regards to the 9/11 project. From the very beginning, to be part of the oral project, to the presentation of getting this information into the Library of Congress, to working with John Field and the Feel Good organization to get the Zdroga bill passed so that we can have medical coverage as well as the monies for the continued research that will benefit not just the 73,000 first responders, but the millions of other people that are going to be affected by this, not just today, but in the years to come, because all that soot and everything landed somewhere. And now people, I don't know how many of these surveys you've done and how many of the other stuff. I've become a professional guinea pig for this. Every time that they got to do another thing, they say, Ralph, can you, I tell them, where do you want me? Because whatever blood work, whatever, it's going to benefit somebody. So my life matters. My life matters. And they're making a difference, and that's important.
I have another question here about, I've been getting a lot of questions. To that, volunteerism. I know many students out there wondering, well, what can I do? I'm 16. We're talking about responding to disasters, but are there other things people can do to respond to smaller things in their communities, whether it's their school or larger community?
Well, I have a niece, and I'm going to tell everyone the way I tell my niece. You are put on this earth not just to take. You're on this earth to give. Everyone, not just a police officer, not just teachers, not just people who work in the hospital, firemen. Everyone is on this earth. They are put on this earth to give. If you belong to a church, volunteer in your church. Red Cross. There are so many community. communities that need people to help, reading to children, going to an old age home and sitting down with them for company, going to a pet store, where you get the pets,
Adoption
shelters. When my niece comes home, she's in college now, but since she was a child, I have a twin sister, that's her daughter. We make sure she volunteers when she comes home from school or during the summertime. It's not just playtime, it's giving back to the world and thanking the world for what you have. So, like I say, there is so many places you can volunteer, even collecting cans, giving during Thanksgiving. I'm very big with Thanksgiving. I don't have a Thanksgiving because I volunteer in a soup kitchen. That's important. I can always have Thanksgiving the next day or a Saturday because my family's there to feed me. Volunteer in a soup kitchen. People love company. They want that 5 minutes of conversation will give somebody the world. So I'm very big in telling kids, high school kids, grammar school kids, college, volunteer. It makes them feel good, and it definitely makes yourself feel good.
You know, it's so important for people to volunteer, for everybody. You know, it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. I'm going to give you a great example. You know, as the thing kept drawing out, people began to become exhausted. And like the Bible says that, that you should not become weary from doing good. Well, on one particular day, I was assigned to put together meals and send them out to the guys who were down, digging and all the other stuff. And I was really feeling down. I was feeling tired. And all of a sudden, I heard a voice behind me. And of all people, it was Boomer Esiason. So I'm looking, I'm saying, Boomer Esiason is down here hand-delivering meals to guys on the bucket brigade. And then he was also working the bucket brigade, and he was doing all these other things. And Boomer, thank you very much. He inspired me to say, well, if Boomer Esiason can stop doing what he's doing, you know what, even though I'm already doing this for 12 hours, I can do this for a little bit longer. There were people giving massages. There were people just running water to people. There were people just, fanning people because it was hot. You'd be surprised what you can do as a volunteer. And during a disaster, you may not have the skills that some of us have, but you know what? Just being there and holding someone's hand sometimes, because you know what? We're not all that strong. Everybody's going to crack at some point. And a lot of people were cracking. And it just took somebody just to hold their hand and tell them, thank you. Thank you for being you, and thank you for being here. And that inspired a lot of guys to get back up and go back into the fight, because we were exhausted. We were working 12-hour days, 12 on, 12 off. Couldn't go nowhere. No days off, 7 days for months. And just having people come, and some people were reading to people, just telling them what's going on in the world, reading letters. We got letters from kids all over the countries just saying thank you and this and that. You don't know how inspiring that was, how motivating. That's what being a volunteer is. That's what being a first responder is. Respond to my need as well. I'm in pain. I'm helping here. You help me. You don't have to be there digging. You can just be helping me.
How important is it to you that we continue to tell these stories?
Well, absolutely perfect to me, because in the movie, I don't know if they showed it in the clip, and in the book, one of the things I say was that there was a young girl, right, that I took to the edge of the pit, and I told her and her parents, I said, do you know why I bring you to the edge of this pit? So that when you see this years from now, this becomes a beautiful park and everything, the people are going to deny, they're going to say this didn't happen, just like some people denying the Holocaust. I said, you'll be able to eyewitness and say this happened because I saw it for myself. I saw the hole in the ground. I saw the disaster. I saw the people working. It's important for me to come here today, and I thank the director, who's very professional, is keeping us moving, and the camera people and everybody who's involved in this, to keep telling our story so that people don't forget. Because the sicknesses are going to continue, the illnesses are going to continue, and the research must continue in order for us all to become healthy.
We need to learn from this experience. That's why this is important. I'm new to this. I'm not as experienced as Ralph, and I do appreciate knowing you today. I really do. We need to learn. That's why we need to keep talking about this. Every experience in history teaches us to do better. So and look at your history books, read them. Now do better. Move on and take what you want to change and continue to improve on what you see, what you read. 9/11 will always be a part of us. Your family, your children will talk about them when we're not here. It's important to always remember, but not to be sad. Take a moment to pray, but to improve, and how can we do better if another disaster happens?
Thank you. Have either of you been back down to the site since 9/11?
Never.
Never.
I think we spoke about this. I honestly have no desire to go back there. I've driven into Manhattan. I've driven all around this. I am associated with the people who work there and administrate the museum and all these other things. And I also know that my name and my story is there. I have no desire to go there because it's one of those places that, I left when I finished from there, and I left. And it's not that I don't want to think about it, but I don't need to be there anymore. I've chosen to leave it as it is. It's beautiful. I look at it from a distance. It's beautiful. The beautiful mind, the buildings, the architect, everything's beautiful, but there's nothing there for me anymore. But that's just me personally.
Well, I will one day. I keep saying every year I'm
Yeah.
going to go. I thought this year, another good partner of mine, Frank Aguayo, he was like, "Are we ready?" And I'm not ready yet. I will go. I do tell everyone, please, if you're in New York, to please visit. I heard it's beautiful. I've seen pictures. But one day, maybe you'll see me in there.
Thank you. Oh, I have another question. The questions keep coming in, so that's great. I did want to ask you, I just want to back up a little bit because I did want to ask you something about how these impacts, whether it's the health impact, not only impacts you as responders, but also children of responders, families of responders, spouses. And as you brought up, long-term cancers, these are more serious, really debilitating illnesses that responders are facing now. And we see that from our clinic perspective and the responders that we care for. When I talked about, we serve about 10,000 patients here just in the Long Island program. About 65% of those are sick with something, and some with very serious illnesses. And I just, wanted to kind of ask you if you see that with your friends, with the community, and how it impacts not just the responder, but their family unit.
Well, on the 16th, we're going to be honoring 36 new names onto the wall that's done by the John Field and Feel Good Foundation, because we don't want anyone to forget. Then we're up to about 3,600 people. There's about 1,800 names or whatever on that list. There are children today who are reading the names of their parents on that perimeter. They never knew their mother, their father. There are people who have lived up until yesterday, one who just recently passed, who lived through all of the sicknesses following after that. One of the funny things that I think of, and it's kind of ironic, is that John Field is 10 years younger than me. And I say to myself, if no one else will remember me, John will remember me. And my name will go on the wall. That's what it's done to me.
Thank you.
I'll remember you too. I'm also 10 years younger. No.
I thought you were 20 years
No,
younger.
I'm only 3 years younger than you. I see my friends who are not well, who do have cancer, and some of them will pass sooner than later. Their children I feel for them because they didn't ask for this. No child asked for this. No child wants to lose their parents. That's why this is important. I mean, Ralph, the things that come out that I'm hearing you say, about the program. The program is here to help people, and it's here also to help the children. So when I see what the kids go through, I'm very happy that the parents are part of this. Parents meaning, you know, Ralph, my friends. You know, I'm not a parent, but that I'm part of this. Maybe I can help and explain to the kids. So I'm very appreciative that this program is here for them, not just for us, but for them too.
One important question that has come up here, but I've been thinking about as well, many of our students were not even born or were very, very young at the time of 9/11. So unlike ourselves who have distinct memories that are our own memories of the event, the only way for them to understand about 9/11 is through stories like this. And in addition, they're living in a world that has changed since 9/11. The pre-9/11 world was very lax security at airports, a lot more freedom of movement, a lot of less checks on identity. And technology has also blossomed during this time. So there's a lot of changes, and I guess I would like to know from you specifically as responders what you see as changes in our culture that are impacting our students today.
Well, we've become much more security-minded, and we've become a lot more suspicious. So I think that it's had a very negative impact. It's made the world much smaller, because this is the first time that we've had an attack on our soil from foreign entities. Other than that, wars have always been fought everywhere else, but now it came to our shores. So we're not safe. The whole world is not safe, and that's really what everybody has to understand, that this affects everybody. And I know we're running out of time, but that has changed our culture. You know, we've gone from that carefree, laissez-faire to being very, very, very suspicious. And I don't really think that that's a good thing.
Okay. One thing I would like to say, you know, first of all, you know, I'm very happy to have you here. I'm very grateful that you continue to be part of our program, and I consider you very brave to come here and share your stories time and time again. I think it's very important for students to hear firsthand about 9/11 from people who were witnesses to it, and so I want to thank you first of all for that. Students watching today, you know, I think they can take a lot of themes away from this. I think you're very inspiring to them, and I hope that they listen to what you have said and incorporate that into their lives. If anyone is interested in learning more about what the responders have done, we do have a collection of about 350 stories. The Library of Congress is curating that, and those will be available shortly. In addition, we have a website, 9/11respondersremember.org. You can go to that website and learn more about our program and what we offer to responders, as well as link into some more interviews. Finally, for teachers who are out there, if you're interested in broadening your 9/11 program, we have developed a set of 9 lesson plans that are available for free through sharemylesson.com. Those include a novel as well as the film and lesson plans to go along with it. So I encourage you to investigate these issues more, and I thank you very much. And if there's a last message either of you would like to briefly share with the students?
I would like to tell people that, you know, the world is a wonderful place, and it's even better when you get involved. And when something happens, don't be a spectator. Don't just sit on the side. We used to tell people, get a glove, get in the game. Be a first responder, help people, and you'll feel better about yourself.
And just be good to each other. Be good to your teachers, be good to your parents, be good to your friends, be good to strangers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie.